So please, we're going to open up the 20 minutes of Q&A for Scott, Woody, and Anne. So I'd encourage Scott and Anne to turn your cameras back on. And if you have questions, put them in the Q&A but otherwise, I've got some questions. So one is, we've talked a lot about different strategies or improvements for energy efficiency, electrification, home hardening, whether it's new construction or existing buildings. How can we ensure, or what are ways that we can work on making sure that everyone has access to these kinds of technologies and methods of construction, and it isn't just something where the people who have the funds can do these kinds of retrofits and the rest of the communities are left vulnerable? Who wants to take that first?
Lots of money.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from the Sonoma Clean Power perspective that we are working a lot on income constrained individuals. With our Advanced Energy Center, we're providing pretty high incentives to the point where for most of the base equipment, things like the outdoor unit or a heat pump HVAC system, a mini split, we're giving away that piece of equipment and have on-bill financing that can help customers finance the rest up to $10,000. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, and I'm sure there's more to be done.
I just add my perspective on that is that there's a lot of high performance building contract, that high performance building contracting community is a pretty tight knit group, and they have different avenues where they share their ideas and what actually works for them. Now, granted, most of their clients do have pockets that are deep enough to pay their bills, but there's a spill out into the general contracting community from that. And just as 10 years ago, we were discussing how the last time we had stimulus money coming in, we were discussing, oh my goodness, wouldn't this be a great opportunity to get net zero homes built? But the initial building community was thinking they were basically following, well, the sky is falling, that's never going to happen, it's going to cost way too much money to get your houses built. But within 5 or 6 years, these just regular production mode contractors were competing with each other on net zero energy, ready homes that were costing no more than the general competition. So hopefully in a few years, everybody will be on board and it won't be, a big hurdle.
Yeah, those are great observations, Woody, but I have to say I'm a little more cynical. The pace of change is increasing, admittedly, in a pretty dramatic way, but I still feel like not only do we need essentially every CCA and every utility in the state to be replicating Sonoma Clean Power's programs, but we need more institutional efforts. And we also need some of that focus to go into workforce education, because that knowledge, there is some spillover effect, but it's way too little too late. We need a lot more people in the building industry to understand what high performance is and be capable of delivering it. And that is a huge, huge shortfall. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have a very low bar to qualify as a general contractor. There are no continuing education requirements. The workforce is extremely mobile, and increasingly English as a second language, with not even necessarily very good quality communications between project superintendents and the actual labor. So we have a lot of hurdles to get over in the building industry, and we need to throw a lot of money at it. There's just no sugarcoating that.
I agree. I think there is potential for light at the end of the tunnel. But we're at the beginning of the tunnel. I will completely acknowledge that.
So probably another thing that would, I'm curious, we have a lot of building department staff on the call on the webinar, and I'm wondering if in any of your work, Scott and or Woody, if you see places where within our current permitting systems or kind of building department processes, if there's anything that you ran into, whether it's because you're trying a new construction method that might be unfamiliar or something else. But are there any permitting kind of hurdles or pitfalls that you've run into, and how do you think we can overcome those?
I'll be happy to jump in on that. And after I speak, I'll also encourage my colleague Christine Condon to share an anecdote, which I know is relevant. You know, there are all kinds of hurdles. And, you know, every time I turn around, I'm hearing a new one, a new wrinkle someone has encountered in permitting, whether it's building permitting or zoning. And I'm actually working with your colleagues at 3C Ren right now on looking at what the gaps in stakeholder education might be and how to address them. And one of the audiences that we realize that 3C Ren has not yet fully addressed is they're doing a great job with building department staff, but not so much with a planning department. And so many decisions get made in planning that are embedded, you know, just as we were all waking up to the profound impacts of redlining in, you know, making inequities persist over decades and centuries, they also have an unfortunate legacy in terms of affecting our building performance. And I'm back to simple roofs. You know, this is one where I've had my architect friends tell me, yeah, we try to design buildings with simple roofs for all the reasons, you know, that I enumerated. And we go to planning departments and they say, oh, can't you fluff it up a little bit? You know, it needs to be prettier. Can't you add some, you know, turrets or gables or dormers? And they're like, no, right? I mean, there are so many reasons that increases cost, it reduces performance, it makes it harder to air seal and insulate effectively. It creates more durability risks, more risks of moisture intrusion. I mean, there's so many reasons to keep it simple, not to mention we're down here on the ground. We don't necessarily care a whole lot what a roof looks like, you know, and yet, you know, we see such a ridiculous elaboration of roofs. And a lot of this is coming from planning and from design review boards. We need to fix that. So enough of that rant. Scott, looked like you might have something to add to that too. And then maybe Christine.
Yeah, you know, we didn't see from our perspective in this program a whole lot with the permitting process. We saw more issues with the energy modeling of some of the newer technologies and things like that. And maybe like radiant floors, kind of getting checkoffs on radiant floors and stuff like that, but not too much from the actual permitting side for my program.
Emily, you're muted.
I was just going to say, Christine, if you wanted to add your experience.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Are you referring to my own personal experience with my project?
Yes, ma'am. It's a good one.
Well, I don't want to go too deep here, but I have been working on a 1950s house in Santa Rosa with the intention of electrifying my systems. And I guess the biggest obstacle I see in this effort maybe is enforcement of design requirements for systems like sizing, duct design, and load analyses. I understand, I work with building departments all the time through this program, and I get the complexity of the energy code, the complexity of, and the high priority of life safety issues. However, I had a heat pump system installed, pretty expensive system, but it was worth it. I really love it. However, it was, had to be tested for the code to meet the code, and it didn't meet airflow requirements because it could never have met airflow requirements under the code because it didn't have the capacity to do that. And that could have been caught in the very beginning. We did find a resolution. It was complicated. I hired myself for free for a full day vacation day as an energy consultant and found the resolution with my great HERS rater, home energy rating system rater, who verifies system installations. And we found a solution, but I think that could have been mitigated. And it ultimately cost the contractor money because they had to come in and install a second return in my system to get it to meet the code. But all of this could have been kind of preloaded. So I have to go back to something that I really believe in is design, right? Pre-designing a system and just preloading it so we don't have those issues in the field. And I was lucky because I had the experience with the code that I was able to find a solution and even understand that there was a problem, or my system never would have operated properly. So just a little anecdote. Thanks, Anne.
So where do you all think is our greatest opportunity for building both energy efficiently and in a way that is fire preparedness or more resilient? Since there's three of you, maybe just kind of like the one big takeaway that you would encourage people to do if looking at either a retrofit or new construction. Scott, we'll just go in order.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for our program, combining all electric construction with the solar and battery is a really strong combination, and can provide a lot of value.
Anne?
Well, I have to come back to the enclosure. The enclosure is really the bedrock of resiliency for so many reasons. It is literally our protection between us and the external world, and the better job we do with it, looking at all of these parameters, I think we're just going to be better off. We're creating an asset that has lasting value and that relies as little as possible on all of the other systems, the mechanical and electrical systems, because they are vulnerable. So we want to make that enclosure as robust as possible.
Rudy?
Mine's a pretty simple one. I mean, if you're providing me with a nice enclosure and good mechanical systems, it's relatively easy to keep up on the ventilation side of it to make sure that we have a healthy indoor environment.
Great. Are there things that you think what do you think your biggest challenge is to having these things work together to building an energy efficient and electric home? Is it permits? Is it cost? Is it just like we talked about, kind of the change in the culture, education of architects and planners and designers?
I'll have one comment because mine will be short. One thing which we had a project that was called the HANG project, Healthy Energy Natural Gas Homes, I think. And anyway, there turned out, we monitored 70 some homes in California, and then that's been replicated in other areas of the country. The general question is, modern homes are tight, they have mechanical ventilation systems in them, are they functioning correctly? And as it turns out, you've got this operator manual that gets tossed in a drawer. And so whenever a person moves in, they maybe were gone over at one time. Whenever the house sells and somebody else moves in, they won't even see that. There's supposed to be a label on a switch in a laundry room that says, keep this fan on, the label falls off. So there's some issues with the actual implementation, and I'm a little nervous about the long-term viability of something like that, because you got now a tight home. The ventilation systems that are supposed to be operating have been inoperable for quite some time. And so, you may start having moisture issues and other indoor air quality issues. So that's kind of a design challenge and a messaging, and how do we deal with that? So,
Scott? You have
I think, we had the rebuild program, the new construction program, and the thing that we're finding with our new program, Advanced Energy Center, is that finding contractors for these newer technologies has been a very big challenge. So for me, that's the big thing that we're seeing right now.
Anne?
So, well, that's a perfect setup for me because I'm going to hammer that workforce issue again. We need a much more capable workforce across the board. And we also need to learn to collaborate effectively across the team. Again, we have to get rid of the silos. We have to benefit from the knowledge of everybody who's going to contribute to a project. So if everybody's better educated, more skilled, more resourceful, and they actually talk to each other, that's magic.
All right, well, thank you to the three of you, as well as Bob and Jeremy from earlier, and everyone who has joined the webinar today. I know that staring at Zoom for 3 hours is quite the task, so I really do want to thank you all for sticking with us. I think that this has been a really great discussion with lots of good takeaways. We do have a survey that we would really appreciate if you filled out, since these do help us plan our next forums. We do one per quarter, and while this is our 4th virtual one, you know, we're still getting the hang of it and know that there might be some things we can improve. So the survey would really help with that. Maybe while that survey is being filled out, oh, sorry, I guess I'll mention, we're also raffling off to one of the respondents of the survey a solar phone charger. So if you want that, fill out the survey. Even if you don't want it, fill out the survey because it really helps us. And maybe while everyone is doing that, I think we just had another 2 questions for Anne in the chat, in the Q&A come in, and one in the just general chat that came in. So maybe in the 2 minutes while our attendees are responding to the survey, our panelists could just close those up so that way everyone can get their answers. That's it. I don't know, Nadia or Edgar, is there anything else we want to say?
All good.
I'll just quickly add that the email with that survey link won't be sent out today. So please do use the link that I posted in the chat.
I can quickly add that I see this indoor environmental quality. Can it be measurable? I think the answer is yes. There's been productivity measurements and shown for that. So it should be pretty easy to put indoor environmental quality in the kind of the workplace is shows economic benefits for homes. And I think that's more the place that could have legs there is environmental justice. That's what I'm concerned with right now.
Well, it's 12:01. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thanks. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.